Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. So I feel like it's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've sat down and filmed a video, but thank you guys so much for the patience while I went on my little break. My cousin-in-law actually got married in Mexico, so I was out of town for a bit to go celebrate with her and celebrate with the family and with friends. So it was really nice to kind of just like take a break and just spend time with friends and family, but I did miss my YouTube familia and I'm so happy to be back. Now, today we're going to be talking about what happened to 12-year-old Florencia Di Marco. I do need to put a trigger warning for today's video because we are going to be discussing details that are very hard to listen to involving sexual abuse. My heart just absolutely breaks for Florencia and for everything that she went through before her death. Florencia was from Argentina, so what happened to her was very big over there, but I definitely wanted to bring the case to you guys and share it with a newer audience because, even though it's such a sad, unfair, and disturbing case to talk about, it's also very important. There's a lot of people that knew about what was happening to Florencia in her home life and, all the trauma that she was going through, but she was failed by these adults in her life. So it's definitely important to talk about it to bring awareness to this issue and how this can't keep happening. So thank you guys so much for being here and for listening to what happened to Florencia. Once again, I really appreciate the patience while I was out of town and it feels so amazing to be back. And I was still posting while I was gone. I did upload 2 new episodes for the podcast, so if you guys haven't checked those out, I will definitely link them down below. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Let's jump right in and let's talk about what happened to Florencia Di Marco. Florencia Abril Di Marco was born on January 6, 2005 in Mendoza, Argentina. Her mother, Karina Valeria Di Marco, was only 16 years old when she had Florencia, and unfortunately her biological father abandoned Karina when she was only a few months pregnant with Florencia. So he pretty much left Karina to raise this baby all on her own, which is crazy because she's only 16 years old. So imagine getting pregnant at that age and then being abandoned by the father of your child and just left to deal with this new and just scary chapter of your life all by yourself. It was definitely a very difficult time for Karina, but thankfully she did have the support from her family and with her friends, and they all helped her get through the pregnancy. And they also helped her raise Florencia in her early years. A couple of years after Florencia was born, Karina met a man in 2008 named Lucas Mateas Gomez. The two began dating and they eventually got married, making Lucas Florencia's stepfather. Now, since her biological father was never present in her life, Lucas was gonna be the new father figure for Florencia, something that she had never known, and everyone was just happy about this, that finally Karina had met someone, there was going to be a man in the household, someone to help raise Florencia and just kind of start this new family. Karina and Lucas had 2 sons together and they were living in Palmira for a few years, but eventually the family kind of ran into some money issues and they decided to leave Palmira and move to San Luis to try to get back on their feet and kind of just have a fresh start at life. Florencia had already completed a few years of elementary school in Palmira and she was described as being very timid and just kind of secluded. She didn't really have that many friends. Her parents didn't let her go anywhere by herself. She wasn't allowed to have friends over to the house. She didn't go to sleepovers. I mean, she was kind of isolated and she spent the majority of her time on the computer, just hanging out on Facebook and being at home. She would post these photos of herself making like peace signs or funny faces and smiling. On Facebook, she would talk to her classmates. They would kind of talk about homework, any projects that were due, and that's pretty much how Florencia would pass her time. Now, Karina says that yes, she did monitor her daughter's Facebook page just to make sure that she wasn't speaking to anyone inappropriate and just wasn't speaking to strangers or to older men, since she pretty much spent the majority of her time online. So of course Karina wanted to make sure that her daughter was safe. So she would often check her Facebook page, her Facebook messages, things like that, but she never found anything that kind of stood out to her or raised any type of concern for her. Now, apart from spending time online, she spent quite a bit of time with her maternal grandmother, and she really enjoyed hanging out with her grandmother. And when she moved to San Luis, she was so upset about this. She didn't like the fact that she was enrolling in a new school, that she had to make new friends, that she was in a new town, and that she was no longer going to be able to see her grandmother every single day. So Florencia would constantly say how much she missed her grandma and how she wanted to move back so badly. She just wasn't happy in this new home and in this new town, and it was just a really difficult time for Florencia, but regardless regardless, the family began their new life in San Luis when Florencia was just 12 years old, and they just tried to make the best of it. So just to recap, this household consisted of the mother Karina, the new husband Luis, 12-year-old Florencia, and then her two half-brothers, 9-year-old Lucas and 3-year-old Abel. Now, they were a family of 5, but after their move to San Luis, there was a new addition to the family. Karina got pregnant again, and on Tuesday, March 21st, 2017, she went into labor, and at the hospital, she delivered her 4th child, a baby girl named Trinidad. Now, since Karina was hospitalized after giving birth to her baby, Lucas was left in charge of Florencia and her 2 brothers. So the next day, on Wednesday, March 22nd, 2017, it was time to take Florencia to school. That morning, Lucas says that he took her to the school at around 8 o'clock in the morning. He drove her up to the front doors, saw her get out of the car, walk up to the school, confirmed with her teachers that she had classes, and then he just drove away, assuming that Florencia walked inside and attended school. Well, later that day, he went back to the school at around noon to pick her up, but when he got there, she was nowhere to be found. He started asking around to the teachers and to the, staff at the school to see where Florencia was, and all the teachers and the staff said that they had no idea where she was. So of course, Lucas started to freak out. I mean, he was in charge of taking care of his 12-year-old daughter, and now she was gone. So he actually walked inside the school, he looked through the entire building, but there was just no sign of his daughter. So then he thought to himself, maybe she left school early, like maybe something happened, and she decided to go back home. So he gets in his car, he drives home, he gets to the house, but once again, Florencia is not there. This is when Lucas really started to freak out, and he decided to call the police and report his 12-year-old daughter as missing. As soon as Lucas reported Florencia as missing, a search immediately began, and neighbors, strangers, members of the community and authorities started looking all over the place for Florencia. They started looking all over the neighborhood, they were looking around the school. I mean, they honestly had no idea what happened to her or where she could have gone to. The media also learned about her disappearance, and it quickly became known to everyone. Everyone in this town was so concerned about this 12-year-old girl that was missing, and it seemed like she literally had just vanished from school. So how did this happen? And where did she go? Now, while all of this is going on, Karina is literally in the hospital because she just gave birth to a baby girl. And instead of going home and spending time with her newborn and just, being joyous and happy, she was just thrown into a horrible situation. I mean, just imagine giving birth to a baby and then the day after your daughter goes missing. It's just a lot to take in, and Karina was out there. As soon as she was released from the hospital, she was out there on the streets looking for her daughter, and she was even being interviewed by the media and by authorities about her daughter's disappearance. You can actually watch interviews of her. There's actually a lot of footage in this case, and in the interviews, she's even holding her newborn and breastfeeding the baby girl. Karina was speaking to reporters, and she was crying, and she was asking for Florencia to just come back. She kept reiterating that if Florencia did run away because of the birth of her new sister, or maybe she did something bad and she was hiding and she was scared that she was going to be punished for what she did, Karina just kept reiterating, please come home. You're not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to be mad at you. I just want you to come home, and I just want you to be safe. Now, there was some speculation about what might have happened to her. Some people thought that maybe she went off with a friend or with a stranger that she met on Facebook. Because again, she spent the majority of her time online. So at first, people were really thinking, what if she started talking to someone on the internet? They pretended to also be a 12-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy. They told her to ditch school and meet her, and then this person abducted her. Everyone thought that this was a huge possibility, so they all started kind of speculating about this, and Karina came out and said that no, there was no way that this was possible because she would frequently monitor Florencia's Facebook, and she never saw anything weird or anything that stood out to her. So she truly had no clue as to what could have happened to her daughter Florencia or where she could be. On top of Karina saying that this wasn't a possibility, investigators did look into her social media, and they also didn't find anything weird. Now, let's talk about Florencia's stepfather, Lucas. He was just as concerned as Karina, and he was worried about what happened to his stepdaughter. She was literally 12 years old, and he was a father figure in her life since her biological father just abandoned her. So this was just a lot for him to take in as well, and he was with Karina in these interviews, and he was also seen crying. He didn't think that Florencia had ran off with someone. He honestly believed that she either went back to Mendoza to go live live with her maternal grandmother since she was always talking about how she missed her grandma, but then they checked with the grandma and Florencia wasn't there, so that theory was quickly ruled out. After that, he was thinking that maybe she was abducted by a stranger. Maybe when he dropped her off at school, Florencia never walked through the doors, and as soon as she was on the school steps, she was abducted. He just cried and he just looked really distraught. However, the public and the authorities kind of raised an eyebrow when they saw Lucas speaking to the media. He would speak about Florencia in the past tense, as if he already knew that she was dead and he was kind of just acting weird. Yes, he was crying, but no one really saw any tears roll down his cheek. You know, it kind of seemed like he was forcing himself to cry. He wouldn't make eye contact with the people interviewing him. He would blink a lot and just something looked off to people. But again, no one wanted to believe that someone in the family could have something to do with Florencia's disappearance. I mean, no one wants to think that a stepfather or a family member would do something bad. And of course, everyone reacts differently to these type of situations. Just because he was referring to Florencia in the past tense doesn't mean that he knew something bad had happened or that he had something to do with her disappearance. But still, people just felt like something was off, and I feel like when everyone comes together and feels that way and feels in their gut that something is wrong, something is most likely wrong. Regardless, everyone was just freaking out about what happened to Florencia. No one had heard from her, no one had seen her, no one knew anything. That was until Karina received a message on WhatsApp, which is like a texting app, from a woman saying that she found a child's backpack in a field, and that inside the backpack, she found a notebook with Karina's phone number written inside, so that's how she was able to message her. This woman gave Karina her address so that they could go pick up the backpack, and Karina's brother went to go get it, and then he immediately gave it to the police. Now, inside the backpack, police found something that was pretty disturbing. Florencia had a dictionary inside her backpack, and there were only 4 words highlighted in the dictionary: lasso, stick, prostitution, and brother-in-law. Now, at first, authorities had no idea what this could possibly mean. I mean, why were these 4 words highlighted? And the 4 words also just seemed really random, like lasso, stick, prostitution, and brother-in-law. How did any of those things have any type of relation to each other? So police were just really confused by this, but they would later come to a possible reason as to why these words were highlighted, which we will get into a little bit later. But still, just imagine finding this dictionary with those words highlighted. Everyone was just so confused by this. So after finding the backpack with these items inside, the searchers started to hone in on the surrounding area where the backpack was left, because this was Florencia's backpack, so why was it in this random field? They started searching the area, but there was still no sign of Florencia. She was still missing, and the public grew really desperate to find her. Everyone was just hoping that, she would still be alive and that this would all be some type of big misunderstanding. But at the same time, people were kind of coming to terms with the fact that maybe this wasn't going to end well and maybe everything isn't okay. Now, there really weren't any suspects, persons of interest, or any type of logical explanation as to what could have happened to Florencia. The police and the public started thinking deeper about this, and everything just kind of went back to Lucas. They just couldn't understand how Florencia disappeared under the watch of her stepfather. Like, what are the odds that the day that Karina is giving birth to her new child and Lucas is in charge of watching his 2 sons, Florencia goes missing? It was just a little bit weird, and like I said, his behavior was odd in the interviews, so everyone just kept going back to Lucas and they wanted to look deeper into him. I mean, he was literally the last person to see her alive. He was the one that says he dropped her off at school and then went to go pick her up. It was just a lot. So Karina did come out and she defended her husband endlessly in the news. And then she would even make these Facebook posts asking everyone to stop tarnishing Lucas's name and for everyone to try to understand what they were going through, and that they were going through so much pain and heartbreak because her daughter was missing. And then on top of that, people were accusing her husband of being involved in her daughter's disappearance. Karina was upset about this. She wanted to defend her husband and she wanted people to know that he was a great father, a great husband, and that he just loved Florencia as if she was his own daughter. Now, when Lucas was asked about the allegations, he said that the people accusing him of hurting Flor had nothing better to do, that they were just wasting their time, that they just wanted drama, they wanted gossip, and he even said that when they find Florencia, they'll know that what they were saying was nonsense.
Y gente que no tiene nada que hacer y se pone a opinar de la vida de los demás.
Sí, yo
No se pone en el lugar de uno lo que está viviendo uno.
Sí, yo en maternidad con todo el miedo, el susto y leer las cosas, comentarios de las personas que decían que él tenía mucho que ver porque era el padrastro, que esto, que... y el dolor grande. Una madre, ¿cómo van a decir eso si él la quiere como una hija?
Claro. ¿Vos qué tenés que decir, Luca, para toda esa gente que en este momento te pone como una de las hipótesis de los acusados, ¿no? De la desaparición de Florencia?
Yo no tengo nada que decir, yo que cuando que encontremos a Florencia se va a demostrar la verdad y
So he was denying these allegations, and he said that he had no idea what happened to her and that he was sure that someone took her. He said that his conscience was calm, that it was clean, and that, again, he always cared for Florencia as his own daughter. He was adamant, as well as Karina, that he had nothing to do with this and that people should have more empathy. You know, instead of directing all of these rumors and crazy accusations at him, they should put themselves in his place and realize, you know, if their daughter was missing, if their loved one was missing, would you want people making these crazy rumors and accusations about you? Probably not. So he was just asking people to have empathy and to stop with the nonsense and to just focus on the real issue here, which was Florencia's disappearance. So going back to the investigation, while investigators were searching the nearby area where the backpack was found, police actually found a surveillance camera that covered the area. So they grabbed the footage, they sat down, and they started watching. You know, maybe the person that threw the backpack into this field was caught on camera, or maybe Florencia was caught on camera. And this could be a clue as to what happened to Florencia and as to how this backpack ended up here. So investigators start going through the footage, and that's when they see a man throwing the backpack into the field. And when police start looking closer at this man, they realize that this man looks exactly like Lucas, Florencia's stepfather. So they start speaking to the neighbors, and the neighbors of the area also claim that they saw a man that looked like Lucas in the area the day the backpack was found. Now, that camera wasn't the only one to capture who police believe was Lucas near the area where the evidence was found. When investigators reviewed the school security cameras, they actually saw Lucas driving past the school around the same time that he claimed to drop off Florencia. Now, the weird thing about this is that he didn't even park or stop the car to kind of like keep up the ruse or to pretend that he did drop off Florencia. In this footage, you can literally just see him drive past it. So after watching this, police determined that Lucas never dropped Florencia off at school. She never made it to class, which I thought was so weird that police wouldn't have confirmed this from the start. I mean, the minute that Florencia was declared missing, why wouldn't they go to the school and confirm that Florencia actually made it to school? I just find that that's a little bit weird that they didn't find out that she never made it to class until they watched the surveillance footage of Lucas just driving past the school and never dropping her off. So that surveillance footage was very weird, and police started to get very suspicious about Lucas because why would he claim that he dropped Florencia off when he actually didn't? Now, the day after police viewed the surveillance footage, Florencia was finally found. But unfortunately, she was found not in the way that everyone had hoped for. And again, I'm just going to put a trigger warning because what I'm going to say next is disturbing. Her body was discovered under a bridge by 4 fishermen and neighbors in a grassy area in Saladillo, San Luis, which is roughly around 35 miles from her home. She was found naked from the waist down with her hands tied, and her body was covered in bruises. The people that found her said that even though they're not medical professionals and have no medical experience, nothing, to them it was obvious that Florencia had been sexually abused because her genital organs were just completely covered in blood. It was just a really gruesome scene, and I can imagine that the people who discovered Florencia probably have that image of her condition in their head to this day. I mean, the fact that they even knew that she had been severely assaulted just based on looking at the exterior of her body says a lot. So the fishermen and the neighbors immediately called the police, and when the authorities arrived, they came to the conclusion that Florencia was thrown off the bridge. Investigators actually couldn't even reach her body because she was in such a hard to reach area, and firefighters actually had to create kind of like a makeshift harness to lower forensics down to the body so that they could examine her. I mean, that's how badly this situation was. They couldn't even bring her body up. They had to examine her while they were hanging in the air. Florencia was face down wearing a white shirt, a blue jacket, and they eventually had to lift Florencia's body in a specific way to make sure that no fluids from her cavities spread. Her body was then taken to the morgue for a full autopsy, and the coroner said that it was just heartbreaking because it was clear to them that she had suffered so much before her death. The medical examiner concluded that Florencia had been brutally raped raped and that she had blood and lesions in her vaginal and anal cavities. She also had previous lesions that were healed, but the coroner says that those type of injuries can take months or even years to heal. That would mean that she was being sexually abused for years. She also had wounds on her arm that were consistent with defensive injuries, meaning that Florencia fought back whoever attacked her and murdered her. The autopsy also revealed that she had no food in her system leading up to her death. I mean, was she being starved? Why did she have no food in her system? The coroner concluded that her cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation. She had an 11-centimeter mark on her neck, and then she had 3 broken tracheal rings. Now, the coroner believes that she was strangled from behind in a position that she couldn't get out of, such as in a car seat, so maybe she was sitting in the car and then someone came up from behind her in the car seat and then strangled her. And the coroner believed that she was strangled with a lasso. They also said that she must have died a minute or 2 after she was being strangled. Now, I mentioned earlier that in the dictionary that Florencia had inside her backpack, there were 4 words highlighted. One of them was lasso. I mean, this is just very eerie to everybody. What are the odds that she had highlighted the word and then she was also murdered with one? Now, investigators believe that maybe she was threatened to be strangled by one if she didn't behave herself or if she didn't do something that this person wanted her to do. Maybe someone told her, "I'm going to kill you with a lasso," and she didn't know what this word meant, so she grabbed her dictionary, searched it up, and then maybe she highlighted it as a cry for help. Since again, she was very timid and shy, so maybe this was her way of communicating and hope that a teacher would see this or that an adult would see it and then ask her about it. The coroner also believed that her time of death was sometime in the morning between 4 o'clock and 6 a.m. on Wednesday, March 22nd, 2017, which means that everything that Lucas said about driving Florencia to school, dropping her off, everything was a lie. By the time he says that this had all happened, Florencia was already dead. So after Florencia's body was discovered, more evidence came to light, and once again, everything just kept pointing to Lucas as the man behind Florencia's death. He was caught again on another security camera, and this time he was captured on a toll road camera going towards the area where Florencia's body was found, which again was 35 miles away from his house in the complete opposite direction. So he really had no reason to be driving over there in the first place. I mean, what are the odds that he was seen driving in the direction where Florencia's body was later found? So he's seen on this footage going there, and then an hour later he is seen returning on the same toll road back to his home. Also, on the morning that Florencia's body was found, the fisherman that discovered her said that they heard a loud bang, kind of like a car crashing into something or like scraping against something. So they heard this bang and then they immediately ran outside to see what was happening. And when they ran outside, they saw Lucas's car. Lucas was in the driver's seat and he was speeding away, and the window was down. So the fishermen were able to confirm that yes, this was Lucas driving. Now, police went to go look at his car and it revealed to have a similar dent/scratch that matched the piece of metal that he crashed into while he was speeding away after dumping his 12-year-old daughter's body. This is all just crazy to me. I mean, even when I was like reading this and like watching interviews, I just couldn't believe this. I mean, he was out there saying that he had nothing to do with his daughter's disappearance, that he loved her, and that he just wanted her to be found, when the whole time he knew that he was the one that killed her and that she was never going to be found and that she was never going to come home to her mom and to her siblings, and that he was a true villain in this. The fact that he was getting mad at people for accusing him of doing this and for accusing him of being a bad guy, and Karina was defending him saying that he was a wonderful husband, it's just a lot to take in. And I don't know, looking back at his interviews, it's just really eerie, because now if you look at his behavior and the way he moves and the way he talks, you can just tell that something is off with him and that he knew that this was such a big lie that was eventually going to explode. So after learning all of this information, after finding Florencia's body, doing the autopsy, getting the surveillance footage, everything, 3 days later, Lucas was arrested and he was accused of aggravated sexual abuse as well as for murdering Florencia. Now, when he was arrested, Karina spoke to the media, and instead of defending him like she had been doing in the past, before she was going around telling people to stop accusing him of doing anything bad, to stop accusing him of abuse, to stop accusing him and like making him seem like he was a bad guy, her entire demeanor had now shifted. She turned on him. She said that he would often hit her and that one time he tried to choke her, that she would cry so much with him, and that Lucas would always break her things when he was mad, and because of that, she would never buy anything nice for herself, because if she bought something new, Lucas would just break it. She says he knew exactly how to manipulate her and that he often threatened to cut his veins when they would fight. He also said that he regularly did cocaine and that she never realized that she was living with a monster. I don't know, like a lot of people don't believe what she's saying, because before she was so adamant in his innocence and that he was a good person, a good father, everything. So if what she's saying is true about him being abusive, why wouldn't she speak up after her daughter went missing? If she found out that her daughter went missing after being in the care of her husband, why wouldn't she tell police, listen, my husband is abusive, he probably did something to my daughter, like investigate him. So I don't know, a lot of people just didn't believe her and they just felt like she was just saying this to kind of protect herself. However, lots of Karina's family members came out and they defended her because the public was upset. They were like, listen, you married someone that was abusing your daughter. Allegedly, he was abusing you. Like, did you know that he was abusing your daughter? And people just felt like maybe she was protecting him. So a lot of people started accusing her of being involved, and her family came out and said that she was a victim. That just like Florencia, she was a victim of Lucas, and that people needed to stop with the rumors, stop with the allegations, and empathize with her because she was abused by this man, and this man ultimately ended her daughter's life. So I guess her family did believe her, and after Lucas was arrested, he didn't resist or, try to say that he was innocent. He just kind of let the police take him without saying a word. It wasn't until he was actually placed in jail that he realized what was going to happen. I mean, there was going to be a trial, there was going to be press about this, his family, friends, everyone was going to find out what he had done, that he had abused Florencia for years and that he was her killer. And he just didn't want that. He didn't want to go through this, so he actually tried to take his own life while in jail, but the police were able to calm him down and save him. After this, he shaved his head because he was scared of being recognized by witnesses when he was fleeing or when he was throwing her backpack into the field, but no, that was of no use because the witnesses were able to still identify him even though he had a shaved head. The fishermen were still able to recognize him even with a shaved head. The toll road camera could still point out that this was him driving, so despite what he was trying to do, it just didn't work. And then after this, he was transferred to an isolated area of the jail while awaiting the investigation to proceed because a lot of the inmates actually threatened to kill him. The inmates found out what he had done and that he was in jail because, not only did he murder his 12-year-old daughter, but he was also allegedly accused of abusing her. So he was a target in jail, and while they waited for the trial to happen, they did put him in a private room to protect him. So now that Lucas was behind bars and he was being accused of these terrible things, police just wanted to dig deeper into him and see what else they could find. Maybe there was more evidence of this abuse going on for years that they could use in the trial, or maybe there was just something else that they could discover. They started digging into his cell phone records, and that's when police learned that a few hours before Lucas murdered Florencia, he had consumed 415 pages of pornographic videos on his cell phone, in particular videos about incest. Investigators said that this was something common that they found in his cell phone, that upon going through his history, he would frequently do this and that he would do this for hours and hours at a time. They also found out that he was likely involved in selling drugs from some messages that they found on his phone. I mean, this guy was just an overall terrible person. The day of Florencia's death, he actually turned his phone off at around 3:19 in the morning, and then it wasn't turned back on until 8:16. And remember, the coroner believes that Florencia's time of death was sometime between 4 o'clock in the morning and 6 a.m. So police are like, okay, like his cell phone happened to be turned off during the time of Florencia's death. It's definitely suspicious. After this, on May 9th, 2017, authorities took blood from Lucas to match it to the DNA found in Florencia's vaginal and anal cavities, underneath her nails, from her mouth, and on the lasso that they found. However, the next day, on May 10th, 2017, Lucas was actually found dead in his cell. They found him hanging, his neck was compressed by a red telephone cable and a sweatband waistband. He was only in jail for around a month before he took the cowardly way out and killed himself. Instead of facing what he did, instead of coming out and showing remorse for everything, he just decided to take his own life because he couldn't face what he had done. Now, on the table next to him, next to a Bible, inside a plastic bag, Lucas left 3 letters written in pencil. They began with, quote, "Today I will take my life." He wrote a letter for his mother, for his children, and then one for Karina. To his mother, he told her some information about some assets that they had back in Mendoza, and then he said that he was sorry for taking his own life. To his children, he told them to be happy and that he loved them so much. To his wife Karina, he told her the truth of what actually happened the day that Florencia died. Well, the truth according to him. He says that he found Florencia hanging in her bedroom and that he just freaked out. He was scared that he was going to be accused of killing her and he didn't know what to do, so he just started drinking and mixing drugs and was freaking out. And because of all of that combined together, he decided to put Florencia in the car and then drive her to the bridge, throw her body over, and then get rid of her backpack and just put this whole story of Florencia going missing after dropping her off at school. He says that that's the truth and that the reason he didn't come clean is because he was scared that he was going to go to jail for this. Those letters are pretty shocking. If what he is writing to Karina is the truth, which no one really believes is the truth, why wouldn't he just say that from the start? If he actually walked in and saw that Florencia had taken her own life and he was freaking out about this and was trying to figure out how to hide her body, I don't understand why he wouldn't just tell the truth or tell the police about this, especially if you saw that there was a whole spectacle and search parties and everything going on because everyone thought that Florencia was actually missing. He knew the truth the entire time and he just didn't decide to tell the truth about this. Also, in the letter to his kids, I just don't know, that's so sad because remember, he still has 2 boys and then a newborn daughter. Not even grow up without their father, but they're gonna have to learn that their father was a terrible person, that he abused their older sister and that he took her life and then pretended as if he was innocent in all of this. The kids were super young when this happened. I believe they were 6 and 3 years old, and then the newborn was literally a newborn. So I don't know, maybe they don't know the truth yet. Maybe eventually someone will tell them the truth, but it's just really sad. And I don't know, it's hard because a lot of people are like, did he actually love his children? In the letter he says that he did love them, but is he capable of love, especially if he was able to do something so terrible to Florencia? Granted, Florencia wasn't his blood, so maybe he did love his blood children. I don't know, it's just a lot, and everyone was just so confused by these letters and just so upset at the fact that he took his own life and was never able to go to trial or, be punished for what he did. As to how he took his own life, authorities determined that Lucas ate his lunch and then went back to his room, and that's when he took his own life. He was found dead in his cell at around 6 p.m. when the prison staff began doing their afternoon head counts. Now again, if he really didn't do this to Florencia, why did he take his own life? Why didn't he fight to the end to prove that he was innocent? Now, although he says that he didn't kill her in his letters, DNA doesn't lie. The DNA test came back and it was a 99% match to Lucas. Lucas was the only person who could have brutally raped and murdered her. There was also blood and fecal matter from Florencia's bed sheets that matched the blood and fecal matter found in the passenger seat of Lucas's car, which coincides with the sexual abuse that she suffered before her death. Now, going back to Lucas and Karina's 2 younger sons, like I mentioned, they were pretty young. I think they were 6 and 3 years old, so a lot of people figured that maybe they didn't know what was happening, but they did come out and they told their mom that that day that Florencia died, they saw Florencia in the passenger seat of Lucas's car and that she wasn't moving or talking and that her head was kind of down and kind of just bobbing. Now, this meant that Lucas moved Florencia in the car with his 2 other children inside when she was already dead. How could he be so horrible to her, strangle her, and then transport her to a bridge and throw her off of it while his 2 other children were in the car witnessing all of this? And then again, to report her missing and do interviews claiming that he was innocent and asking her to return home, knowing that she wasn't going to return home. How is he capable of doing that? And why did he do this? Yes, he was drinking and mixing drugs with it, but still, I feel like you just have to be absolutely evil to do something like this. And I just can't imagine the pain that Florencia went through before her death. And the fact that these little siblings had to witness this and are going to grow up with the trauma of seeing this horrific thing go down. Now, unfortunately, Florencia's story just continues to get worse as the investigation moved on. It was confirmed that Florencia was abused by Lucas more than once and that it's possible that the adults in her life knew about the situation and knew about the abuse but didn't do anything to stop it. Due to the severity of her injuries and the DNA match that proved Lucas was indeed the one who repeatedly raped her for years before her death, Karina was also arrested on April 4th, 2017. Now, she was accused of essentially the same thing as Lucas, but she was deemed as a necessary participant by omission. Basically, she did nothing while she knew that her partner was abusing her daughter. Her trial lasted around 2 years, and in the end, she was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Now, Karina claimed that she had no idea that her daughter was suffering repeated sexual abuse by Lucas and said that if she did know her daughter was going through this, her daughter wouldn't be dead. However, during her trial, there was a lot of strong testimonies proving that Karina did indeed have knowledge of the abuse. Now, the 3 judges on the case say that the testimony, which was the hardest to hear in a long time, was the one of Lucas's own mother, Esther. Now, Esther and Florencia were very close despite not being blood related. Florencia still saw Esther as her grandmother. So Esther testified and she struggled to speak and she was crying a lot during her testimony. She was repeating how Flor was such a good girl and that they had such an amazing and beautiful relationship. She says that the night before her murder, Florencia had called her and told her that she wanted to go live with her. And she says that Karina absolutely knew what Lucas was doing to Florencia. When Lucas would shower, Karina would send Florencia into the bathroom to give Lucas clean clothes. When she walked into the bathroom to give him the clothes, he would close the door behind her and then he would stay inside the bathroom with her for a while, which is very odd. I mean, why do you need to close the door and keep Florencia in the bathroom with you? If all she's doing is handing you clean clothes, there's really no need for that. On top of that, I feel like it's a little bit weird that Karina would send Florencia to do this. I mean, why couldn't she give Lucas the clean clothes? Why did she have to send her daughter to do this? Now, Esther knew about this, and she actually confronted her son Lucas about this, and Lucas just told her, "Mom, you're always thinking the worst." Now, yes, the mom seems like she might be a little bit innocent, but at the same time, if she knew that this was happening and she had her suspicions about this, why wouldn't she say anything? Why wouldn't she call the police or speak to Florencia and ask her, "Hey, what's going on? Tell me the truth." It's just crazy, and this is something that's going to be very common in this testimony that I'm about to explain, but it seems like a lot of people knew about this and had suspicions, but did nothing to confront the situation or help her. Now, Esther also said that when Florencia would come stay with her, she would act a little bit weird, and what she means by this is that they would sometimes sleep together in the same bed, and she says that Florencia would sometimes try to touch her breasts. Maybe because Florencia thought that this was normal behavior. Maybe this is something that Lucas was doing to her, so she thought it was okay to do to other people, and that's why she would do this to her grandma. Or maybe she was trying to find an explanation as to why her stepfather would do this to her. It's just really sad to think about this. I mean, Florencia was 12 years old and she was showing this odd behavior because she was so confused that someone that was supposed to protect her and love her and be a father figure to her was doing these inappropriate things to her. Now, besides showing this odd and inappropriate behavior, Esther said that Florencia did confide in her a few times and said that her and her mother Karina did not have a good relationship. They would constantly be fighting and Karina would insult her and treat her really badly. According to Esther, Karina would even call her daughter a prostitute, which, if you recall, Florencia's dictionary had the word prostitution highlighted. Florencia probably didn't know what this word meant. Her mother kept calling her this word, so she grabbed the dictionary, she looked it up, and then when she read the definition, her heart was probably just broken. She's looking at this definition and realizing that her mother is calling her this. And she's probably so confused as to why her mother would say this to her. I just don't understand why this was happening. And again, if Esther knew about this, why didn't she do more to help her granddaughter? Now, Florencia's biological grandfather, the father of Karina, also gave a statement saying that Florencia would often tell him that she had these terrible nightmares, horrible, horrible nightmares where she was hit, grabbed by the neck, and where her bed would move, where she would see a man in the doorway of her bedroom, but then disappear when she would wake up, which now we know weren't dreams. That was probably Lucas standing in her bedroom watching her or waiting for her to go to bed so that he could go in and abuse her. Now, Florencia's mother and family weren't the only ones who knew about the abuse. Her previous school also knew about this. Teachers and principals of her old school testified, and this one teacher named Adriana, who was her teacher at her old school, said that during her last day before she moved to San Luis, her classmates threw her a going away party, and they gave her these letters and these posters and, all of these amazing gifts. And Adriana was there, and when she was saying bye to Florencia, she gave her a hug, and that's when Florencia told told her, "Sometimes my dad caresses me." Adriana was like, "What? What do you mean? Like your dad caresses you?" And she says that Florencia just smiled and then walked off. Now, Adriana thought that this comment was weird. I mean, for someone to tell you that your father caresses you, it's very alarming. So Adriana actually went to Karina and she told her, "Hey, your daughter just told me that your husband is caressing her." And that Karina just replied and said, "Well, yeah, how could he not? She's the queen of the house." Ay, Flor, she's always lying. Yeah, she literally said that her daughter was lying about something so serious. Now, Adriana thought that this was really weird and she wanted to keep investigating this. So she actually told the vice principal of the school about this, named Anna, but the vice principal said that they shouldn't make a report to the police since it was just a comment. And I'm just like, really? Like, if a little girl tells you that her dad caresses her, you don't want to make a report about it because it's just a comment? It's just so disappointing that the teacher and the vice principal knew about this but did nothing to help her. Florencia also told her teachers that her stepfather would go into her room, check if she was under the covers or not, and then would grope her. Now, when they told Karina about this, they said, "Hey, your daughter is saying that your husband gropes her." Karina would say that Lucas loved her and that's why he took such good care of her and that Florencia was lying about the groping. Adriana says that Karina was never really present or involved in Florencia's school life. She says that during the school year, she maybe saw Karina 3 times. So she was not an involved parent and she wouldn't attend any of the parent-teacher meetings and, she was just an absent mother. Now, another teacher from a previous year testified as well, and she said that Florencia was actually absent quite a bit, and just like Adriana said, Karina was never really present, she never really participated in the school, but just because she was absent and kind of had an absent mother, it didn't really raise any suspicions to her about Florencia being abused or something else going on in the household. Now, when all these teachers testified at the trial, the school tried to protect itself and kind of protect its image because everyone was mad. Everyone was like, this school sucks. Like, people at the school, the teachers, the vice principal, people knew about this but did nothing. So the school tried to defend themselves and the vice principal testified and said that Adriana never told her about the conversation she had with Karina, the day that Florencia said that her dad caresses her. And then the main principal of the school named Sonia also said that she didn't know about any of this, that she didn't know about the comments, that she didn't know about the abuse, nothing. However, later the principal and Adriana were actually suspended for 6 months because they didn't report Florencia's comment or the concerns to the authorities. And they say that because Florencia was going to move schools and move to San Luis, they decided that it was no longer any of their concern, and that's why they didn't report it to the police, which again is so frustrating, you guys. I can't even get into it because it makes me so upset. Now, when the old school heard about the news of Florencia's death, there was actually an audio message that was exposed during the trial, and this audio recording was made by a teacher at the school, and she was sending this message to a group chat with other teachers. Now, this message makes me so angry, you guys. I'll see if I can include it here. It's in Spanish, but I'll add subtitles. If not, I will link it down below. This audio makes me so angry. This teacher just calmly is like, "Oh my gosh, did you guys hear about what happened to Florencia? Like, this is crazy. She was such a nice student, but I bet the stepfather had something to do with it because she was being caressed by him." Yeah, this teacher said that. And she kept just saying it so calmly. She's like, "Ay, chicas, like, she told us that she was being abused. She told us about what she was going through, but we didn't do anything. Like, let's hope I'm wrong and let's hope it wasn't the stepfather."
Ay, chicas, ojalá que no le haya pasado nada, pero el infeliz del padrastro seguro que tiene algo que ver, porque cuando nosotros la teníamos, él la acariciaba a la niña y muchas veces nos contó a mí y a María Teresa que él la acariciaba, que se metía en la pieza para ver si ella estaba durmiendo, si estaba tapada o no. Y cuando nosotras le dijimos a la madre que ella nos había contado eso para que tuviera ella cuidado, la madre no nos creyó y dijo que la Florencia mentía, que era re mentirosa y que el novio de ella la quería mucho, por eso por eso la cuidaba y todo. Así que ojalá, chica, que no vaya a hacer cosa, que el padrastro para mí me da mala espina, para mí que el coso algo tiene que ver, chicas, en serio.
So because of this audio message, it was absolutely clear that the school knew about it, but for some reason decided to not report this and help this little girl that was asking for help. It just makes me so mad and so disappointing. Like, You hear that Florencia goes missing and that she's dead, but yet you just gossip with other teachers about this instead of going to the police and telling them about your suspicions about Lucas? It's so upsetting. Now, besides the teachers testifying at the trial, there was also a couple of moms that testified. These moms were the mothers of Florencia's friends, and one of them, named Teresa, said that Florencia was quite distant and shy and that she was never allowed to have play dates for more than an hour. So Karina and Lucas were very strict, and Teresa says that she was kind of friends with Karina and that they would message each other on Facebook and that they would confide in each other about things going on in their life. And that one time, Karina confided in her and told her that she woke up to Florencia screaming and that Lucas was standing next to her. Florencia had a scratch and she said that it was because she had a bad dream. Teresa says that the last time that she saw Karina was at Florencia's funeral and that Karina said, quote, "I regret not knowing Flor had a monster right next to her." But Teresa says that even though she was friends with Karina, she honestly feels like Karina knew about what was happening. Because as a mom, you just know when something's wrong with your kids and you know when something is bothering them. Florencia would even call Teresa mom sometimes. Florencia didn't have that mother figure in her life and didn't feel like she could trust her own mother. Now, going back real quick to the nightmare that Florencia had, the one that I just mentioned about how Karina woke up in the middle of the night because Florencia was screaming and then she had scratches on her. Well, that night, Karina says that the entire family got some pizza. They ordered pizza to the house and there was this salsa that was supposed to be put on the pizza. They ate the pizza with the salsa and then everyone literally started to feel sick. Like the little boys started to feel sick, they started to feel nauseous, Karina started to feel sick, Flor, even Lucas felt sick. Everyone just felt like maybe the salsa was expired and that's why everyone started to get very nauseous. So everyone went to bed and was kind of just like knocked out because of how sick they felt. Karina went to bed and then she woke up because Florencia had the nightmare about a man coming into her room and grabbing her. Well, when she went to go check on Florencia, Florencia had scratches on her. And then when she looked at Lucas, Lucas had scratches on her. So she asked Lucas, what's going on? Why do you have scratches on you? And that's when Lucas said, I heard Florencia was being fussy in the night, so I went to go check on her. She got scared and she scratched me. And Karina just believed him. Now, looking back at this, investigators and Karina believe that maybe Lucas had drugged them that night.
De ese sueño había pasado esa noche que habíamos comido pizza. Toda la familia, él comió una porción de pizza nada más. A la media hora empezamos a sentir mareos, yo no me podía levantar de la silla, los niños se me caían, de a poco los fui acostando cada uno en su cama. Él me decía que seguramente era la salsa, que le había caído mal a todos. Y ahora yo pienso y estoy segura que él nos puso algo en la comida, a toda la familia.
Maybe he put something in the salsa to make everyone sick, and then he just pretended to be sick, and that way everyone would be knocked out, would go to bed, and he could just sneak into Florencia's room at night and take advantage of her since everyone was sick and drugged. And that when Florencia was saying that she had a nightmare that a man had grabbed her, that wasn't a nightmare. Lucas was actually grabbing her, but when she woke up and just scratched him because she was scared, Lucas tried to gaslight her and basically was like, oh, you were having a nightmare, it was just your imagination, and that's how he was able to get away with it. Now, another mom named Laura also testified, and she said that she noticed that Florencia was kind of weird and that it always looked like she didn't feel well. And then another mom also testified, I know there's a lot of moms, her name was Emilce, I believe that's how you say it, and she said that her son told her that Florencia was often sad and that she would cry a lot. Then another mom testified named Grecia, and she was really close to Karina as well as to Florencia, and Florencia would actually write to her saying that she was so happy for the birth of her new sister and that she was so excited about this. Grecia says that after her two other sons were born, Karina started to grow distant from Florencia and she was no longer involved in her school, in the school meetings, or even hung out with the fellow parents anymore. To a lot of people it seemed like once her new children with Lucas were born, she just kind of pushed Florencia to the side because she wanted to focus on this new family, this new, chapter with Lucas, which is just so heartbreaking. Now, there was also another testimony done, but this time it was not done by a mom. It was done by the man that performed the autopsy on Florencia. Now, while Ricardo was describing the discoveries in the autopsy, he says that it was as if Karina could feel each word he was saying, kind of like a stab to the heart. Because while he was testifying, Karina was crying a lot. So he was thinking to himself, was she finally feeling guilty? Was she finally realizing what her daughter had been through for the past few years and right before her death? Now, when asked if the injuries Florencia had could have gone unnoticed by her family, Ricardo said no, that it was pretty much impossible for a mother to not notice the injuries that Florencia had. Once again, reiterating that Karina did know about the abuse. Now let's talk about Karina's defense team. They kept saying that their family dynamic revolved around Lucas and that Flor died only at his hands, not Karina's. Both the defense and the prosecutors tried to argue that her death was largely the school's responsibility because they did not follow the proper protocol and report Florencia's comments to the authorities. They kind of just minimized what Flor was going through, and anytime she tried to speak up, no one would listen. Karina also tried to defend herself and said that the only reason she didn't speak up sooner about the abuse that she was going through at the hands of Lucas is because she was scared. So she actually told people, look at all the interviews with me and Lucas. I'm scared for my life. I'm standing next to him talking about the disappearance of my daughter, and Lucas is just staring at me and giving me looks as if he's threatening me to not say anything about the abuse because then he'll kill me. And she kept telling people I was still living with this monster even after my daughter disappeared. He was still in the house with my other children, so I was too scared to say anything, and that's why I never told anybody that he was abusing me. So she was really trying to defend herself, and Karina's defense team actually requested the nullity of her trial because they said that Florencia's autopsy wasn't valid, which I'm not sure why they said that. I wasn't able to find more information about that. But in the end, Karina gave a closing statement and said, quote, "All I ask is that justice be made for my daughter and that God takes care of the rest." And again, she reiterated that she had absolutely no knowledge of her daughter's abuse. Like I said, Karina in the end was sentenced to 18 years in prison on April of 2019. And when she was leaving court and was asked by the media if she had any comment, all Karina said was justice. In the years since then, she actually began dating a man who she met inside of the prison. This man was later released, but she doesn't really have any visitors, but she still speaks to her children. She speaks to them over the phone, and as of now, her children are staying in the care of Esther, Lucas's mother. Now, Karina is able to be released from jail once she has completed 2/3 of her time in 2029. So we will see what happens. I will keep you guys updated in the comments down below, but that's pretty much all the information I have for today's video. I know it was a difficult one to listen to, and just makes you so angry, and this kind of reminds me of the Melissa video that I did a few weeks ago, and I just hate that there's this pattern of kids telling adults in their life that they're being abused, but then nothing is being done to help them, and it's just really frustrating, and I hate that this happens. I hate that people knew that Florencia was suffering and that she was telling people all of these very alarming things, but no one did anything. It also just breaks my heart that she suffered so much before her death. I mean, the fact that there was no food found in her system just makes me be like, what the heck was going on? I mean, were they literally starving her on top of abusing her sexually? Now, as for the other words highlighted in the dictionary, I wasn't able to find much about this. I mean, we know that lasso was highlighted, possibly because she had been threatened to be killed by one in the past. Prostitute was highlighted because allegedly her mother would call her that. As for stick, we're not really sure why that was highlighted, but as for brother-in-law, a lot of people speculate that maybe Lucas was trying to plant things in Florencia's brain about his brother-in-law, Karina's brother, hence Florencia's uncle, was a bad person. Because at first, a lot of people thought that maybe Florencia's uncle, aka Lucas's brother-in-law, might have had something to do with this before Lucas was found guilty, etc. And the uncle did a lot of interviews saying that he was innocent and that he would never touch his niece or look at her in an inappropriate way. Well, after Lucas was found guilty, the uncle did another interview and he says that he honestly feels like Lucas was trying to set him up. So maybe he would tell Florencia, hey, your uncle is a bad guy. Hey, your uncle is going to kill you, or something like that. And that's why Florencia highlighted the word brother-in-law, because she was trying to understand it. I don't know. That's what the uncle and a couple of investigators believe, but we really don't know why stick and brother-in-law was highlighted.
Prostitución, sí. Lazos,
Un palo, después palo y cuñado, ¿puede ser?
Cuñado.
Qué sé yo, capaz que sea una cosa de él, que lo haga él, lo haya hecho él, con tal de inculparme a mí, no sé. La verdad que no entiendo.
Por lo de cuñado, decís vos.
Claro, por lo de cuñado.
This is just such a difficult case, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down and listen to what happened to Florencia. Like I said, this is a lot to take in, and it's so sad when we talk about cases that involved the essaying of a child. But like I said, it's so important to talk about these things so that people can be aware and look out for the signs when a child is asking for help. The fact that Florencia made that comment to her teacher about her stepfather would caress her and nothing was done about it is shameful and disturbing, and we all need to do better. And as mothers and fathers, if your child tells you that something is happening, you need to believe them. I mean, you can't just say, oh, they're lying, and choose a man or choose a woman over your children. It's really sad that Florencia was abandoned by her biological father, and then she was abused and killed by her stepfather. It just seems like she had no good parental figure in her life, and the mother had so many opportunities to stand up for her and protect her, but she didn't. Everyone let her down, and my heart goes out to the community and to the friends and family that lived this entire thing firsthand, especially for the remaining children. The newborn baby that was thrown into this terrible situation, and to the two brothers that now have to grow up with literally no parents. I mean, their father is dead and then their mother is in jail for 18 years. If you or anyone you know is going through abuse, please contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline, available 24 hours at 1-800-653-4673. Like I said, I will keep you guys posted on any new movements in the case, but I would definitely love to know what you guys think about this, and if there's ever any other cases you want me to cover, make sure to leave me a comment down below. Like always, my sources and any other helpful resources are in the description box down below if you guys want to check those out. And don't forget to watch episode 15 of the podcast. I will link it down below, and you guys can also listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But alright, you guys, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you again so much for being here, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.